Esther, it's so lovely to see you again. I'm so sorry you're not here in Australia, but it's so lovely to see you.
Hello, Anne. Wonderful to see you at least on Zoom.
Yes, look at your happy face. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Yes, kind of. Yes, as you can.
It's been a big year, hasn't it, for us all?
Yes, it has been. Yes.
Thank you so much for exhibiting again here in Australia. Such a beautiful show called Linkages. I'm so proud to have your work up on the walls in Timeless Textiles. Once again, it's a stunning show. So thank you for that, Eszter.
It's my honor to be at Timeless Textiles Gallery. I'm really pleased that I can exhibit there.
Now, what was the thinking that you had behind Linkages?
Well, as you know, I'm very fond of the visual appearance of maps. And I always loved to have one in my hand when I was walking around in an area which I didn't know. It's a tool to help you to find your place. And actually, I wasn't so much aware of this until I did a lot of works with the theme. And after a while, maybe 20 years has passed by, when I realized that it is kind of a tool for me for finding my own identity. So knowing where you are, from where you start, from where you make a big movement, you have to have some stability under your feet. It's, you know, like a tower, high diver who has to have the balance and the diving board before making the big jump. So, and it took me really a long time to find it, but as I get aware, looking back, it was a long process for me. And the maps, how they look and what they mean for me, they helped me a lot in this journey to find my own identity. So Linkages is about how you link certain, well, a map is just a skeleton of a city. A very schematical drawing, and what you put into it, that there is the city, there are the buildings, there are the people, and on top there is the society of the city. How do these things link with each other? And in many different ways, I'm trying to portray these ideas. So for instance, with connections, well, actually, it was a very nice story because I'm always in search for new materials, and I actually wanted to use computer keyboard buttons for a work. I had an idea. So I asked people if they have at home some thrown out ones, and I got lots of them. So I started to screw and take them apart. And when taking apart the first one, I found wonderful integrated circuit films in them, 3 in each. Some of them had the circuit, some just some holes, but they looked wonderful and they didn't let me go. So Connections was, I think, one of my first works using these integrated circuit films, because the circuits have these very schematic passes from one dot to the other. It is very similar to how the underground or metro layouts are drawn. So it immediately clicked something in my head that these are so similar, so I can kind of layer them on top of each other. And so I had the films, put them below each other and connected them just with stitching an underground layout on top of it. And plus I drew with just stitching some skyscrapers, line draws on top of it to have the feeling of the city. And this is really about the virtual and the physical connections in between people and how they help the society to come together, to connect people. You know, I'm coming from a family with scientists. My mother was a physicist, my father an experimental surgeon. So experimenting and trying to find ways has been always part of my work. And also I had a lot of integrated circuit boards, but they are hard. You can't, it is very difficult to involve them into textiles because they are very stiff. So I was really, really very happy when I found these flexible and on top transparent films that I could use. And the transparencies, they actually alter what we see behind. Between the lines, it's a kind of a keyword from my childhood, you know, when we were living in the communist area, as you call it. We call it socialist, but anyway. So in the newspapers, you really were reading between the lines. Is there anything moving to some directions? Are there new words that the official media is using? Is there any little sign that would show us or predict us a little change in where we are living? So we were really, we were reading the newspaper, which didn't say anything else than the propaganda of the times, but still, if there was something new coming, there were tiny little signs of it, and we discussed it with what is between the lines.
The markings that are on those transparencies draws you in. You actually have to step forward to read and to look at it.
What I actually like and what I would like to, what I'm striving for, it is that there are details on my work that draw you in and watch it closer, but then you have to step back and see what is the role of this in the whole, and then you recognize another detail, and so that there is a constant discussion or conversation in between the viewer and my piece. And this way I can talk to the people. I used to use a lot of transparencies, but with maps, but with newspapers that were cut out. So they were not real transparencies, but you could see through and 3 more layers or see the shadows behind the work.
You've got many layers in At Your Feet. I think that's a very whimsical piece.
So when we had a migrant crisis, when thousands of migrants came through Hungary and there were a big mess, and some people helped, some people were mad, how do they come here and turn upside down our lives and so on. So I thought of making a piece showing the counterpoint of the lives of these people and our lives. Some migrants walking in between the rails with backpacks and children. And the other image was, you can't see, but it is my husband reading the newspaper in his very comfortable armchair among his beloved books and so and so. And somehow I found the idea too didactic, so anyway, I already made the first piece with my husband at home in the armchair, but when then the time came to make the other one, I felt, oh, it is too didactic, and so I dropped the idea, but I had Adam in the armchair. So, and quite recently, actually during the first lockdown in March, April, and May, there was so much discussion about how the air is cleaning because the factories are not working, the cars are not going, the planes, the flights are not going. And there were wonderful charts how cleaner our air became. And that made people, and among them myself too, more aware of, I knew theoretically how important it would be to, and how near it is to us, the climate change. And with putting these colorful thermo lines under his feet, it is also a little bit didactical, but I thought it is a must to face people that it is at our feet. So we can't wait anymore. It is here. We are sitting in the armchair and reading newspaper, but our feet are already licked by the warm water. It was a kind of a new kind of technical thing by me, what I call fake embroidery, that actually the sketch of my husband that was made after a photo is made of paper, and the whole thing is totally transparent. So that you, and if you put it a little bit apart from the wall, then you see the shadow. So you can think yourself behind it, or because the person is totally covered by the newspaper, it could be you or your husband or whoever, but mainly you. Yeah. I mean, us. When I was at the usual checkup at the doctor, I have seen at the time when they were not just on the computer, but they were on actual films. I saw a box with thrown out X-ray films, and I asked my doctor if I could have them. And she said, okay, they go to garbage, so you can have them. And I looked at them and, oh, they are all breasts. And couldn't I have some lungs, please, maybe? And she sent me to the pulmonology department. And I got some lungs and then some bones. But they were all spoiled. Some of them had necklaces on them. Some of them were, of course, over or under exposure. And some had bypass things. And I tried to make a map out of it. And okay, I made Budapest map. And okay, it is there, but it doesn't say anything more than. And then I looked down to the floor where there were lots of cutout streets, and they made a big mess. And I thought, okay, this should be combined in a layer behind. So I made another layer and thought of the conflict between the urban planners and the real estate people. The first, they planned wonderful parks for us and how we can feel better at these places. And then they come, the real estate people, and say that there should be a new plaza, something somewhere in the middle or so. So it becomes a total mess. And I thought I will make it as a next layer, as you can turn to the next page, and what is there? A total mess of streets.
And another series you've done is the cityscape.
Yes. You know, I started with doing quilts.
Yes.
And after the many years, there are quite a lot of them, which I think are not so, they were just one stone in the road, but not really good and not really significant, just trying to find my ways. But they take lots of space in my storage. So I was thinking about reusing them. So I took some of them and cut them up because I thought working in smaller scale would give me more secure feeling, or it's easier to start with smaller if you start with something new. You know, when I made my transparent maps with the newspapers, and I cut out either the streets or the blocks, so I always have positives and negatives. And this way I have a lot of rests which I save because they are important. So I started to play around collaging on these cutout quilts. So actually you don't really see that it was a quilt before. You just see that there is a little play in the surface. It is not so flat as if you layer these things on a cardboard or a wood board or anything. So it has a little play of surface, unevenness of the surface, but still I could play and make these cityscapes, which are partly actual skyscrapers or could be buildings, but I also included some dress patterns actually that I got from you. Thank you. And I combined them, and I tried to cut out from these city map plans, which were printed black and white on some paper, newspaper, or any kind of paper. I tore out or cut out very vague figures, but they are the same size as the buildings. So, and on top, I had these round red city maps, which I included as giant moons or suns, whatever. So I really like to play around without any special plan in my head. Just, you know, but the plan came when things were already put out, and then one idea came after the other. And it's also all about our relations to the city, how small, how big we are in it, how much we can influence in it. Sometimes we feel nothing, and sometimes we feel, oh, there is something we can start something to act. And when you see some other people started to act locally, then you feel, oh, we could do it the same way. So it is slowly growing and seeing examples, and so it's showing some ways for you how to interact with the giant big city that goes like a mammoth, and also all the political things around it. But still, sometimes you have the feeling, oh, we can do something little locally, but still.
And I haven't seen them, but you've been doing some extraordinary 3D sculptures.
Yes, it was during the first lockdown, when I was actually supposed to be in Australia for teaching and with you, but I couldn't go. So I found, oh, I have got an extra time for more than a month. And I can do what I started, but always postponed and couldn't solve the problem, and so and so. So what was here in my studio, there were some 3D sculptures that I began to make with paper clay and covering them with paper pulp. And the paper pulp I made myself of Russian sedge and cooked it, which is a very dirty and bad smelling procedure, but still it gives a wonderful textured material. And and also being in the lockdown and, you know, hearing so many things and the opposite of it, and so many controversial statements, what we are in and what will happen, and so much uncertainty. So my mind was going around these while my hands were doing something, and sometimes these two things just came together. So I got into a wonderful flow of making one thing after the other. And the starting point were always three-dimensional geometrical forms, like a sphere or a tube, and I altered them and twisted and turned them, and I really enjoy them, and all of them have a little push behind them from the inspiration and thoughts. So I was very lucky in the summer when where the lockdown was a little bit eased off, and I could have an exhibition of these works in a wonderful gallery that I love. It's called Fuga in the downtown of Budapest, and the building where they are is an old earlier bank building. So it has a basement too, where there was a treasure, and it's a room without any windows, but it is painted totally black. And I loved it because it was relatively small, so just my works fitted in, and the works were on black stands, whatever, and they were just lit with spotlights, so they were as if they were floating in the air, and I really loved it very much. And I also compiled a little ebook about it. It has an issue link that you can share with people, so you can watch this book and also read a little bit about my inspirations.
They are very joyful when I look at them.
Yes, they are sometimes funny or whimsical, or just showing a mirror to what we are in at the moment.
Yes. And what's things going to be like for you, do you think, in the next year or so, Eszter, in terms of your work?
I am constantly in experiments, so I like to use new materials because it is always a challenge. How I can use it, how I can express my feelings, and it opens up new ways of thinking about your work, about your theme, and also it gives new visuals, and the theme and the techniques are kind of playing ping pong with each other. It fastens up.
Yeah. And you've no idea where that's going to land either.
So I started to use, and I have one of my very recent pieces. We had a reconstruction in our department, and there were lots of cover plastics that were left here, and people wanted to throw them out into the garbage, and I said, no, it will be very good for me. I cleaned them, and it was quite a long process to find out how paint will stay on them, otherwise it will drop it down. So I managed, and then I heated them with the heating tool, and they got scrumpled, so they just get shrunk, and they made wonderful textures. So I could put my map fragments on it and could layer them as I did before with textiles. So it came back from the early 2000s, but I really did enjoy. And I had also got some new meanings before, as these are kind of the layers of memory, where you have some very crisp and clear events, and some remain in shadow. But either if you are aware of them, what are in the shadow or not, they are part of you and part of your personality. And some are really just fragmented, but that's all what you add up as your background or your personality. So I really love this new idea, because earlier I did the same kind of layering, thinking on layers in the earth, like Troy, where 7 layers were found below each other, or nowadays maybe even more. I didn't follow it quite up, but it's so wonderful to dig into our history and feel that these are our roots, and this is where we come from, and kind of all the knowledge that they had, we have somewhere behind. Maybe it's very Jungian way of thinking, but I really believe that we have some ancient knowledge that we can read after, but the feeling that it is there and it is below our feet and we stand on them, and it gives some kind of stability to us. It's a wonderful feeling.
And also congratulations so very much on winning the Art Textile Biennial Award
thank
in
you.
Australia, which was a very beautiful thing for you to be awarded.
Yes.
So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for giving us some time, and it feels like you're just sitting here in the room talking about this work. I look forward to the time when the world opens up again and that we can get together and that you're back in Australia. It's certainly fantastic being able to have your work here for Australians to see your work.
Thank you.